Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Combluzier, a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar focuses on Goldplay Mining, a Canadian junior exploration company focused on exploring and advancing gold, silver, and copper assets. It holds large district-scale gold and copper gold projects in BC's Golden Triangle, as well as several brownfield gold and copper gold projects located in Portugal. Today, I have with me on the webinar Catalin Flisky, who's the president, CEO, director, and founder of Goldplay Mining, as well as Jose Maria, who's the head of exploration for Portugal. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the first part, Catalin will provide an introduction to Goldplay Mining. In the second part, we'll take your questions live. So please send your questions in using the chat box, and we'll get to as many as we can. And I'll note you can type them in at any point throughout the presentation. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into it. So for Goldplay Mining, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Goldplay Mining corporate presentation located on the company's website. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Goldplay Mining specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to Catalin to introduce you to Goldplay Mining and what you have to look forward to with the company.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And again, thank you for everybody that's participating in today's webinar. As you mentioned at the beginning, we have the fortune to have this event streamed live from Portugal, literally from our office here. And together with me is our exploration manager, the head of all the efforts in Portugal, Jose Maria Castelo Branco.
Hello.
Hello. And he will be available at the end for any questions. So feel free to abuse him and ask any questions you want to know about Portugal. Even though I may know the answer, I'll get him to answer. So you get the right answers from the right individual in the room here. But really, the purpose of today's presentation is not really to tell you, how great we are and why Goldplay Mining so much. I think we want to make it a little bit more relevant in today's environment. And really, the idea came out, especially in light of what's happening throughout Europe and, the situation now with Ukraine and why not. I've really come to experience firsthand over the last year, really, that Europe is changing. And, we'll be talking a little bit more about it. And it's really changing. And I know that for a fact because I'm a European myself. I was born and raised in Romania. I am a Canadian too. I've been living in Canada for 20 years. And I do know firsthand the mentality of Europe. And I can attest to the fact that when it comes to mining, which is the business we are in, Europe is changing. And I genuinely feel this is possibly a historic opportunity, even for investors, to relook at Europe. But let's get into today's presentation, and we'll try to keep it brief to leave as much time as we can for questions. As Tyler mentioned, we will be making forward-looking statements, so just remind you risk associated with that. It's a very interesting picture when you look at Europe. Right now, we all know that Europe is importing most of its natural gas needs, at least most of the countries in Europe, from Russia, and there's big issues with the war due to the war in Ukraine. But when you look at the metal, the metals which are critical for Europe to sustain its economy, its everything to do with life, really, it requires metals. It's importing most of its metal from places like Russia, places like South America, which, there's countries and countries there, even some from China. And at the same time, Europe sits on a very large mineral endowment. And if you look to the European Union from left to right, from north to east, from east to west, there is significant mineral known mineral potential in many countries throughout Europe. And Portugal, I think is very fortunate to be one of the top ones, together with Spain and other countries. So really, we are in a situation where Europe is currently importing most of its raw materials, yet it sits on large underexplored projects throughout Europe in various countries. And to make things, more concrete, if you look at the push in electrical vehicles, and Europe, it's a big promoter of that, and there is a lot of push like in North America, but so much more in Europe for electrification of the cars. Well, it's a very interesting statistic I just came across that one average electrical vehicle needs about 180 pounds of copper metal. That's 10 times more than a regular car. So probably by weight of metal needed, copper is number one, in terms of the metal needs. So we're talking close to 100 kilograms, roughly, of copper metal in each electrical vehicle. So where is Europe going to get that metal, considering, that currently it's importing most of metal needs? So yet, there are significant copper deposits within European Union. And historically, and that's where I go to the fact that I can attest to it, Europe has not been generally conducive to mining, and to a large extent, that's still the case for some countries. But this is changing. And I'll tell you my direct experience. We can talk about Portugal and how it's changing. And I can attest to the fact that it's changing through what we have been doing within Portugal in the last year. So that's really the reason why I personally think this could be a historical opportunity to get involved in mining within the European Union. Why Portugal? And there's many reasons why not. I don't think actually there's many, because it's great food, great wine, great people. But let's talk about mining. Mining in Portugal is something that's been going on for even before Roman times. So, there's been, and there are still mining, all mining works within Portugal that go back to the Roman times. And it's still a big industry today, but nowhere close to what its true potential is. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it in the next slides. If you look to compare Portugal to other mining jurisdictions throughout the world, in 2019, Fraser Mining Institute ranked Portugal as 5th in the world as the most attractive jurisdiction globally, which is it's a great place. Portugal, even though it's not a fairly large country compared, to what we are using in North America, and even compared to other countries within Europe, does have a significant mineral endowment. On this map here, the color, especially the circles colors, those are known mineral occurrences / deposits within Portugal. So as you can see from this picture, you don't need to be an expert, it's pretty much littered with minerals, from north to south and, kind of east to west. And on top of that, Portugal is also an important producer of decorative stones, marble, limestone, and granite. Right, so they do have that industry as well. Yet, most of the mining is really done within 3 mines in Portugal, and those are fairly large mines. They are mostly situated in the Pirate Belt, and I'll talk a little bit about the Pirate Belt. But it's really 3 major mines that are producing currently in Portugal. So, at the same time, you've seen the previous slide where there's so much more that could be brought forward to production. And, I said earlier that I'm going to share a little bit about my personal experience with Portugal and why I truly believe that Portugal is taking this encouragement of mining very seriously. In May 2021, so roughly a year ago, Portugal has revamped its mining landscape by publishing a new mining law. And as a matter of fact, now this new mining law, has a very clear set and a very clear process on how you can get mining concessions and mining rights and exploration rights. I'll try to explain it to you. It's a bit different than what we are used to, for example, in Canada or US, where you go online, you apply, and you get your license, and you get it. Here, it's a little bit more bureaucratic, like Europe is, but it's very well established. First of all the mining concessions, mining rights are handled by a government agency called DGAG. So it's Director General of Energy and Geology. So it's like a ministry within the government that's in charge with energy and mining. So if you want to apply for a mining concession, you basically make a proposal and an application to the GAG. They review it. It does take some time, of course, and go through the process. It's vetted, and why not? You need to provide proof that you have the technical and financial capability to take on a project, which is great, because it's vetted basically. And then you sign roughly up to a 5-year contract, the initial contract for exploration. Once you've signed a contract, you do some work, you can then apply to move the license from exploration to possible mine development. So very clear process. In this picture here, it's myself together with Jose Mario in October of last year signing a concession agreement, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in the presentation. Literally, less than 6 months after the mining law, less than 6 months after new mining law has been published. So that's the proof that the government is serious about encouraging mining. So I'll talk a little bit about what we have going on in Portugal. I just want to remind you also of projects in BC. I'm not going to talk about it today. We have more high grade, like early stage project that will hopefully be drilling this summer in BC. But in Portugal, to counterbalance that early stage, high risk profile we have in BC, we have something different, which I'm very proud of. We have, for most part, brownfield projects. We are basically projects that have produced in the past, in recent times, basically, both copper, mostly copper, and some gold. We also have some exploration projects as well. We've established those projects within 2 companies that we control in Portugal. One has effectively 2 main projects. One is a high-grade copper mine. But what's interesting about this is that the fact that average grade is about 2 to 3% copper. This is historic grade, but very little of the known mineralization has been mined. We are talking, probably 1/3 of the, or less, of the known mineralized body has been mined. And probably last time they've mined that copper was about 75 cents a pound. Well, approaching $5 soon, hopefully, even continuing what's known there could be conceptually economic. So that's what we're after. We're after trying to bring those projects forward from, effectively no work has been done for 20, 30 years to a situation where we can prove up their potential, and there is a lot of historical data through our own work that we're going to be doing, and show to investor a path to a production restart. So that's what the objective is. Of course, we won't be able to do everything ourselves. We have a lot of projects, as you can see here, but that was by design. We wanted to get as much exposure as we can. So during the course of this year, Goldplay will begin focusing, and we're going to probably pick one of the best projects we think we can advance ourselves, and then the rest will try to find partners to bring those projects forward. A quick picture of the mine I mentioned before. The old mill building is still in place, even though you may not be able to use this very old building, but that's not the point. The infrastructure is there. This is a project literally that you drive off the paved road. You go off the paved road, you turn right, you are there. And it got power, workforce is nearby. You don't need to build a camp. People go home or go to a hotel and sleep. It's great. It's unlike what we are used to, for example, in BC, where everything, especially at the beginning, is helicopter supported, right? And based on the records that we have, the mine produced last time in 1975. Copper averaged about 55 cents a pound. It probably stopped because of the copper price being so low. And no work has been done since. Why? Because Portugal has not really been, like many countries, serious about encouraging mining development. Well, that's changing, and Goldplay has the first mover advantage. We are possibly, through the work we're doing, and becoming a significant player as we move those projects forward. So I feel that we are in the right place at the right time with this opportunity we have on our hands in Portugal. We've announced roughly about a month ago the results of the first hole we've ever done in Portugal. This is again at the historical copper mine, and we had a nice surprise. We got about 2 meters of close to 6 grams gold, relatively near surface, in a project where we're only talking copper. So gold has not been really recognized, maybe due to the prices of gold being low at the time. So that provides additional upside for the project. So we'll be following up on these results, and we do have more pending results for the campaign we've completed already that hopefully will be made available over the next week or so. So stay tuned for more results. And the objective again of this limited campaign that we completed was really to prove up what's been a great historical information in terms of grade mine and type of mineralization. So we don't want to rely 100% of that. We want to do our own drilling to support so that we can go back to investors and say, guys, look, this is the plan and this is why and this is how we're going to possibly show path to production restart. We have another excellent project. This time it's an open pit copper mine, and the grades, historical grades, are again between 1.2 to 1.4% copper for an open pit. Those are very good grades. There has been some interesting results in the past. The one intercept here is 10 meters of 1.7% copper in an open pit. That's an excellent grade. So again, we just a little bit of hint of the type of mineralization and type of grades we are talking about. So those are pretty rich grades that those projects have. And like the case with the previous mine I mentioned, the Miguel Vacas copper mine, also it's a situation where probably less than 1/3 or even less on this one of the known mineralized horizon has been mined, right? So we have ahead of us 2/3 of what's kind of known, plus all the upside of an exploration. So, and really the other interesting thing about both of those projects, the copper ones, they sit less than 200 kilometers by paved road to a copper smelter in Spain. So, should there be an economical project, you got a way to sell your mineral within 200 kilometers. That's great. Who is making everything possible? Outside myself, I was involved in mining for about 20 plus years. Prior to funding Goldplay, I was involved with a few other companies. The most recent success was really Tudor Gold, where I joined the company at kind of its breakthrough point when we were about 25 million market cap, and I raised all the money for Ken. We became, $500 million company and a great success story. So after my job was done there, I decided to create a new company where hopefully we put the best of what we've learned throughout our careers to work in Goldplay. That's really how Goldplay was created. Dr. Deepa Malhotra is the head of our board. He's a world-renowned metallurgist. Jose Mario Castelo Branco, he has a ton of experience. I'll turn the camera to him. He has run the Lundin mining group operations for 7 years in Europe. He's still consulting for the Lundins. We are very fortunate to have him as the lead in Portugal, even though we are a small company. So we do have high caliber people that are buying into our vision and are making things happen. And Jose Mario is based in Portugal. We are broadcasting live from his office here. He's got an entire team at his disposal that we can use as we go drill and do work. So it's a great setup for us. And I'm not going to mention everybody in the interest of time, but really there's another aspect to the people. We're also fortunate to have a group of advisors, and those are people that for most part are shareholders too. One individual I'll name here, it's Walter Kos, who's the CEO of Skina. He's also an important shareholder of Goldplay. I've known Walter for a really long time. And we are very fortunate to have the likes of him and Ken Brank, for example, an ex-senior Newmont executive, Adam Travis, who is a well-known geologist in BC, Jorge Ramiro, he's the founder of Reina Gold and Reina Silver, and the list goes on. So those type of people, it's great to have around because they can help us scale things up. We can go from a small company, 60 million today, based on results and a bit of luck, hopefully, to what we really hope to be a much larger company. From a shareholder structure perspective, we are very tight. We've got just about 50 million shares outstanding. We are in a good cash position. We're about $2.2 million cash. We have a good shareholder base. About 1/3 of the shares are held by the brokers in Raymond James Vancouver, who are long-term, and they've been supporting other kind of Spain/Portugal companies, and I've worked with them in the past. We do have a little bit of institutional holdings through Toronto, and then we do have a few high net worth individuals who are there for the longer term. So I think with that, I would like to turn the floor now to questions, to make this more of a dialogue than a monologue. And feel free to ask really any questions, whether even directly related to our activity in Portugal, to the mining landscape here, to what's the best wine in Portugal, to which Jose Mario can answer. He told me that he's got at least 500 bottles of wines in his private cellar. So he is a master on wine too.
I do some exploration for wine as well.
But really, let's make it fun, and feel free to ask any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Catalan. So we'll now turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar, and just a reminder to everybody on the line to type in your questions at any point now. So we have had some come in. The first one we'll start off with looking at the Portugal assets. Maybe you could just provide kind of a bit of a background, and if you have any numbers off the top of your head of what the historical production looked like there, to give the viewers a kind of an idea of the project there in the history.
Yeah, and I think I'll let Jose Mario answer that. But see, there is definitely a lot of historical information available on those projects. The challenge is that it goes back to so many years that you don't have the full picture kind of thing. But I'll let Jose Mario kind of comment in terms of what do we know in terms of what has been produced at those projects and what type of volumes and things like that, right?
Yeah, I can give you some figures from memory. But by far the biggest operation in Portugal is the London-owned Somincor, which is a basically the Neves Corvo deposit, which it's a producing mine since already about 35 years. Right. And the grades, it's probably the highest VMS deposit in Europe. In terms of gold grade, copper grades, and also used to be also a relatively significant tin producer. So it's a VMS, typically a VMS, and has produced until now, I don't know exactly, but probably in the range of 2 million tons of copper metal. I've asked my apologies to Lundin if I making this number small, but that's the figure, the idea I've got. The other one is another copper mine which is historically producing since the Roman times, Aljustrel. Nowadays has been revived and is also very healthy, producing something like I would say 20 million tons copper yearly. with a grade in the range of 1.5, 1.6% copper. These are the two main copper mines in Portugal, but along with those copper mines, we also have a worldwide, world-class deposit for tungsten in central Portugal called Panasqueira, which is also producing for almost 150 years by now. And along with that, there are several other smaller scale operations that have been going on and off, as Catalin was saying. But most of them are stopped from, you were saying 30 years ago, probably most of them 50 years ago already.
Yeah, and 30 years applies to our projects, right? Yeah, and I think, probably the question was also how much was produced from our projects, right? And that's where I said it's a bit challenging to know that number because the records that we get, historical records, are not consistent, right? We don't know exactly.
We don't have exact figures at all, right? Because these mines were abandoned when the production, most of this production records were not compulsory to report. So you can guess some of them, but I'm not doing here any guesswork. Our target, our immediate target, I can talk about the immediate target that we think that we might achieve quite easily in several of the operations. The minimum target would be something 150,000 tons of copper in each of the smaller scale properties. There is obviously an upside, and the upside, well, you don't know. You can get to very interesting figures, especially high grade. Most of them are high grade properties. So all we have is to drill, and to evaluate these properties properly.
Right. Yeah, and with that, I guess in terms of drilling, as you say, lots of properties, lots of historical mines there. Do you have kind of everything that you need to kind of pick the highest priority? You mentioned you were, planning to pick out the best properties to move forward with drilling. I guess, do you have kind of all the information that you need to make that decision?
I think we'll get very close to that. We are still waiting results, which we should get momentarily from the holes we've done this year. So those together with the historical results should be enough. And then for the other project, I think there is more information available, so we should allow us to have an informed decision. They are both great projects because when you look at the average grade, we are talking about 2% copper for underground, which is pretty good grade, and over 1% for open pit. Again, good grade. And really, what Jose Manuel alluded earlier, when we make those announcements and when we tell why we're choosing them, we're going to try to quantify the resource potential, right? What's the geological target, right? Because it's great, you have great, but do you have enough of it, right? And based on the historical information and the work we are doing, we're going to try to come up with a professional best judgment target. So people say, okay, you got so many millions of tons or pounds of copper. Yes, you can have a project, possibly, if define it, right? So that's what we will be doing over the next month or two.
Okay, great. We have a question here. Maybe just clarify for the viewer here. Are you talking about copper sulfate or iron oxide copper? And do you already own the mining rights for these mines?
So you're talking about Portugal. So the way it works, I think I alluded in my presentation, those projects currently have mining exploration rights. So we can do exploration, we can do drilling. You don't really need a drilling permit. It's part of your contract. We do need to notify the institutions that we're going to be drilling, but there's no real permit. It's part of your rights as designed and described in the contract, right? As soon as you are ready and within your time frame of up to 5 years, you apply to move your mining concession, your exploration concession into a mining concession. And nobody can take it from it. It's not like somebody else can come and make that application. It's yours to make that decision, right? So the objective is that within a 4-year time frame, you apply to obtain, to basically change the exploration license to mining concession. And the rules around that are not related to having, for example, a 43-101 feasibility study. The government looks at it in a different way. So you do not need to have a feasibility study, for example, 43-101, to apply for mining concessions. They look, there's more leeway, put it this way, right? They look at the big picture, right? So which is great. So, as a matter of fact, when we have signed our exploration contracts in October, I think there were, remember how many? There were like 10 contracts signed in total, and I think 6 were mining licenses, like 4 were mining exploration concessions. So, none of those projects had a feasibility study. So they are being granted, right? There's a process that you have to follow.
Right, and in terms of the deposits you're looking at here, are they oxide or sulfide, or what minerals are you typically saying?
I'll let the expert.
Well, one of the open pits was actually mined historically in the oxide zone, but the target is obviously, as you develop these properties, these pits underground, you will get into sulfide ore. So the target will be sulfide ore, not oxide, mostly sulfide ore. So chalcopyrite mostly, yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Okay, another question here. Just wondering, how do you prioritize your BC assets versus the Portugal assets, and what jurisdiction will be the focus of expenditures and project advancement?
It's a very good question, and I think we are well prepared for that from the beginning. So if you look at our structure, we do have 2 separate heads of exploration. One is BC based, lives in Vancouver, and in charge with the BC projects and BC projects only. And then we have Jose Mario here, based in Portugal, and he's in charge with Portugal and Portuguese projects only. And kind of each division is kind of independent, but it's come together as one company, as Goldplay. For BC, we are a bit more fortunate when it comes to funding, that we can use flow through, and there's more, suppose call it, easier way to raise capital, where Portugal, it's hard dollar, so it requires more effort and additional. But it's also, the profile is different, right? BC, it's early stage. Portugal, we're talking near-term production potential, so it's a different type of investor. So we're managing that, so there's no competition whatsoever in terms of resources and funding. They each kind of have their own funding allocation, and like we have the situation in Portugal, we end up with so many projects. We're going through a process right now to prioritize and decide which one we're going to focus our own dollars, and then find partners for the rest. We're going to go through the same process in BC. We have 3 projects now in BC, and we're going to end up with one that we're going to spend money on, and the rest we'll try to partner with and JV, so we can spend some of those dollars on those and create more shareholder value with basically no dilution, if we can.
Great. Okay. And you mentioned on one of the last slides, I guess, you had about 2.2 million in the bank or so. Is that enough to get you through this year, or are you going to have to raise capital?
We will raise some money, because out of that, it's about 1.5 that's flow through, so it's allocated for BC. And even when you look at BC, my preference it's that we have at least 3 million before we begin drilling, because it's things are expensive, and we want to have a healthy budget to give it a good shot. We're not afraid to take risks, quantify risk and expert-driven risks. So we want to be in a position to have the funds available to to do what we believe would be the checking of a great target, of a great discovery. That's what we are really after in BC. And we have and we've done the same approach with BC. We've done initial work with our own money last year to kind of validate historical results. We validated those. We had some really great results up to 1.2 kilo silver, 2 ounce gold, 1 ounce gold, 4% copper. So it's there. The target is there. So we're going to execute on it. So we will probably be doing another flow through before we begin drilling in August, July, August, subject to permitting, which is another issue in BC. And then Portugal, we will put forward the plan on what we believe we have, what does it take in terms of dollars and time to get where we want to be. So it will require an independent funding for that, but not before we can prove up why we're raising the money.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So it looks like we are starting to get questions. Maybe a good way to kind of wrap things up is, just lay out very clearly the catalysts that investors have to look forward to, and maybe give everybody a final pitch for Goldplay Mining.
Yeah, sure. There's another. I think we answered it. I was reading the question.
Klaus,
okay, yeah. Klaus. Okay, thank you. Good. So I think, look, the way I would summarize it here, I think the time to look at Goldplay is probably the right time now, and I'll tell you why. It did take us, roughly a year to get where we are today. This all started with an idea and a concept a year ago, when we had nothing. We are in a situation now where we have some really good projects both in BC and in Portugal. We've done initial work to kind of know what's going to be the focus of the company, so stay tuned for that. And this is the year when, we're aiming for a discovery in British Columbia, and we're aiming for a very attractive path of production restart in Portugal. That's what we are after. We want to take advantage of those things that I mentioned during my presentation at the beginning, the real need of within European metal production. And, we may not have a major mine in Portugal, but nothing wrong with a medium-sized cash flowing operation that sits next to the power infrastructure and generates, tens of millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars of NPV, but with a low capex, right, and high grade. So we may, and we kind of know we have that already. We are also going after the big fish in Portugal. Why? Because people involved, as I mentioned, they do have capability to support upscaling. So stay tuned for our potential involvements into the pirate belt, where the big guys are, where the big projects that Jose Mario said earlier are, and where is still a lot of underexplored areas, right? And
correct.
We live within our means, but we are also trying to step up the game a little bit if we can, one step at a time.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And actually, before we finish, I did want to ask Jose Mario what the best wine in Portugal is. I am curious, since I'm a big wine.
The best wine of Portugal is.
I'm biased, but I would say Douro. It's my region. It's close to the place I live. But it's probably the best area to get. There and Alentejo, where the Neves Corvo mine is also a very good place to get excellent red wine, especially red wine.
I think it's Valmião. That's one of the.
Valmião is Douro.
Yeah, Douro is one of the most famous wines. Valmião. You can actually buy it in select stores, even in Vancouver, like the high-end boutiques. Valmião, but even in Portugal, where wine is cheap, you pay 50, 60 euro for a bottle at the
80.
80.
The Valmião is about 80.
But the regular wine here is like 10 euro or less. So that's the wine, Valmião from Douro Valley.
Excellent. I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Catalan and Jose Mario, from Goldplay Mining. And thank you for taking the time to host the webinar today with Red Cloud Securities. And thank you to everybody for tuning in with us.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, everybody, for taking time to listen to our presentation. And as always, feel free to reach out directly to either myself and Jose Mario. we'll love to chat with you. And we are pretty much at the inflection point, I believe, in the company, where things will hopefully start happening. So that's the plan.
Perfect. Thank you very much.